Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the first question we answered was, how does osteopathic training differ from traditional medical training? And we found out that both regular medical doctors and DOs, they both go through the same basic trainings as far as the medical is concerned. They are both licensed physicians. They can both do surgeries, prescribe medications, all that stuff. But when it comes to diagnosing the patient, that's the difference. They go to about 300 to 500 hours of training for a manual diagnosis and treatment. So they just spend most of the extra time learning more of the muscular skeletal system. They are more likely to give wellness tips like drink more water, get more sleep, than they are straight to, oh, here's an antibiotic. Yeah, so that's about it. It's pretty much a lifelong commitment, though, because it does take about 10 years before they are really trained in it, you know. So they have their basic training, but after about 10 years, that's when they really get the hang of it. So that's what we got.
Whoa.
Okay. Why is there a second medical degree separate from MD? And DOs prefer to incorporate more musculoskeletal manipulation or massage in their treatment plans because they believe this can sometimes facilitate healing more successfully than medications. So they still believe in prescribing medications, but they're more likely to look for more natural ways of healing as well.
Are there feelings of competition between MDs and osteopaths? We actually have a unique situation where Jessica and I live here in Tulsa. There are a lot of DOs that come here for residency. So we have a lot of them like in our ward and in our stake and stuff. And so I actually interviewed 2 of them. And they both said, you know, essentially, well, first, Dr. Reeder said, you know, the competition is not as bad as it was in the past. The older generations used to have stigma against DOs just because of the training. They felt it was lacking. Now there's a lot more unification of the residency programs. He specifically said there are still a lot of programs that will only take MD students. I know for a fact Dr. Reeder, is trying to get into a plastics fellowship, and because he is a DO, he cannot get into the ones that are accepted here. He actually had to join the Air Force as an Air Force reservist to be able to, because they offered this plastics fellowship that he wanted to DO. So there's a little bit of that. And then Dr. Smedley was saying that regionally the competition is still there. But it changes with time and exposure. And it also depends on where you live. He made an example of the first one he ever met was back in Utah in 2002. And he said he was an anomaly. He says, but now there are huge numbers throughout the Mountain West and multiple schools opening there. He says once someone works with the DO or MD, it typically becomes a non-issue. But DOs historically are still minorities and have that complex. Oh, this is me again. Okay, when and where was the first osteopathic medical program launched? I actually enjoyed reading a lot about Dr. Taylor. So he opened up the first one in Kirksville, Missouri in 1892, named the American School of Osteopathy, and now it's still there. And it's A.T. Still University in Kirksville College of Osteopathic Medicine. And he pioneered the concept of wellness and recognized the importance of treating the whole body.
All right, so this one's mine. And Andrew Taylor Still, he was the founder of osteopathic medicine, which is where that name came from. He became a doctor and a surgeon in Missouri in the early 1860s. And 3 of his kids had died from spinal meningitis. And after watching that, he just realized that the things that the physicians were doing at that time were totally useless, you know, and lots of times would do more harm than good. So he decided to use the rest of his life basically to find better ways to heal people. And so he thought that when everything's working together, your mind and your body and, you know, your whole musculoskeletal system, especially working with everything else, is the best way to heal yourself. They're also interrelated. There we go. You can go next.
Oh, this is me. So this picture, it just showed kind of where a person that is wanting the residency as a DO can do so. So these are mostly family practices, which what I learned is DOs primarily, not primarily, but more often go into family practice. And yeah. Okay. So yeah, that map up there. Since 2009, how many residency and employment options there are in the country for DO. For the past 7 years, the number of jobs available have been on the rise. 31 out of, typo on my part, out of the 50 states have a DO program in one of their universities, and in most of the states that don't have a medical school with a DO program, they have accredited undergraduate programs to help students prepare and train go on after they get their bachelor's degree. On a national scope, from 1980 to 2013, enrollment in osteopathic medicine went from 1032 students nationwide to 5,100 about. So it's a pretty good incline of students going into to be a DO.
Okay, so Abraham Flexner's report. It was initially called Medical Education in the United States and Canada, and it was published in 1910, and now we call it the Flexner Report. But he wasn't even a doctor, but he saw how just medical schools, they needed to be more standardized and have more training, and not only be for like financial gains. So he was a great educator and teacher and stuff, and so he just he could see how to make it more efficient and stuff, and so he did try to standardize the entrance. Well, that's on the next page, I guess. Let's see. Flexner criticized medical schools as a loose and lax apprenticeship system that lacked defined standards or goals beyond the generation of financial gain. In their stead, Flexner proposed medical schools in the German tradition of strong biomedical sciences together with hands-on clinical training. So he wanted them to be more learning hands-on and things like that. So the next slide is in the report. Flexner described his view of what medical training should be and that it should all be based in science. So here we go. He recommended standardized entrance requirements, 2 years of college, because before this, I guess there was no standardized anything. So he recommended lots of science classes before you go on to medical school, and that the scientific method can also be applied to medicine. He maintained that experimenting and actually doing, like what we talked about, hands-on, is the best way to learn medicine and science. He viewed new research as a critical aspect in teaching medical students, which we know today, to us that's obvious, but I guess it wasn't then. And then after visiting all of the medical schools, he suggested that 124 of the 155 schools in North America and Canada, well, it says North America, maybe it was just the ones in North America, shut down or kind of merged with larger schools so they could work better.
Okay, I interviewed Dr. Brian Smedley, who is an ENT DO in the Tulsa area, and he said he chose to become an osteopathic physician rather than an MD after an experience he had. He and his wife had just moved to a new area, and he was ill and had to go see a doctor, and the one he just happened to see was a DO, and he was just really impressed with how the DO tried to look at the bigger picture rather than just hurry and write him a prescription and send him on his way. Just really looked at the illness to see what they could do to help him. And does he feel like there are any important differences between a DO and MD? And he said they're basically the same. They can both provide the same quality care. It just really depends on the doctor, their mindset, and how they like to deliver care. They go through basically the same training in medical school, but the DOs do require between 300 and 500 extra hours of training in like that musculoskeletal treatment and muscular manipulation, just the homeopathic type of treatment. And he said it's not uncommon to see MDs and DOs going into practice together. And he said, it probably, within the next 5 or so years, like the programs will probably merge together. So there will just be more of the same curriculum for all doctors. I think that's it.
Awesome. Good work. Very well done. You guys covered the questions. Did a really good job. So I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to ask you some quick questions. Each of you will start on the left-hand side of the screen. So work with Amber and then work our way across. So the question is for all of you guys is, what was the most interesting thing that you learned as you were doing your research for this project?
So I was curious to know exactly what the difference was. And it makes me want to go see an osteopathic doctor because I'm a little weird and I can't swallow pills very easily. So if there is another way than just giving me a prescription, I would much rather that route. So I just found that really interesting that they try every other option first before they go through and just say, here's medication, yeah, you're sick, here you go. So I found that really interesting.
Cool. Perfect. All right. Jamie.
Well, I guess the biggest thing for me is so my whole plan of getting this degree in health science is I eventually wanted to be a physician's assistant. And Dr. Smedley, who Jessica interviewed, he kept saying, why don't you just go to medical school and become a doctor? He goes, it's only a year longer. And in the long run, you don't have to specialize and be a surgeon like him, but it would just be better training. And I think that this presentation just kind of opened my eyes a little bit more to wanting to take that route. I tend to like to look at things holistically, and I always knew that if I even became a PA, I wanted to work for a DO. And so, yeah, it just has kind of opened up kind of what I want to do for graduate school.
Awesome. That's fantastic. All right, Jessica.
Oh, okay. I picked this topic because we've had different experiences with DOs. We've had some great ones, like Dr. Smedley took out my kids' tonsils, had a great experience there. And then I have a couple boys that are very accident prone. And so we made a couple trips to the ER this year and saw a DO. And some of the choices she made weren't the best. And so, I really wanted to kind of dig deeper to see what the difference was in the schooling and the training. And it's just, I think I've just figured out it was just a doctor's choice and not a fault of the degree itself, because they get plenty of training and I think are just as likely to make great choices or mistakes like MDs are.
Awesome. All right, Logan.
All right, so I'm actually wanting to go to PA school after this as well. A lot of my classes this semester have been on, all the different types of jobs. So I went into this looking at different approaches to medicine and, see if that would kind of adjust my view on what I'd want to do. But I really found interesting that how much of a difference, just like looking at what the difference was, that it was essentially, mindset and, just a few different techniques on treatment, and how, how much of a different experience that was for people. And so I think for me, just kind of applying that a mindset to, you know, whatever you want to do with it can make a huge difference. And so that's actually, you know, something I've been thinking about a lot with that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Janie, please bring us home.
I'm sorry, I don't know why my picture changed to my dog. It open switched. But anyway, I loved learning about Abraham Flexner, the Flexner report, because I love things to be efficient. I love like to see that things can run, you know, the fastest way and stuff. And so it was super interesting to me. The things that we take for granted that, yeah, of course you would want to be trained in science and stuff before you go, you know, treat people's bodies and stuff. But those things just weren't normal then. And so it was really interesting to me to see the differences between and kind of and standardizing what the requirements to enter medical school and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool.
Awesome. All right, so great job. I'm going to stop recording, but hold on for a minute.